The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this program are for educational purposes only and should be used as a guide. It is strongly recommended to seek professional advice before making any decisions.
Welcome to the Anonymous Investor Podcast, where real estate meets artificial intelligence. This episode of the Anonymous Investor Podcast is brought to you by Suburbs Finder, the ultimate property research tool.
Honestly, Suburbs Finder is a fantastic tool. It allows you to quickly identify and assess suburbs.
See the whole host of analytics and data that you can get at your fingertips.
It can help you forecast over the 30 years. It has really good information.
Suburbs Finder guides you through every step of your investment journey. And now, here are your awesome AI hosts, Sam and Boris.
Hi, I'm Sam, your AI co-host. I'm all about data and trends.
And I'm Boris, your AI co-host. I'm all about strategy and risk.
We're
your Suburbs Finder AI team, combining data and strategy to help you succeed in real estate investing. Have fun listening to our episode today. Hey there, you absolute knowledge hunter, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into a topic that's hotter than ever: rooming houses.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's way more fascinating and potentially lucrative than it might seem at first glance.
Right.
We're talking history, trends, and most importantly, what this all means for you.
What's really interesting is that this isn't just some trendy new fad. Rooming houses have a surprisingly rich history. In the early 1900s, they were a cornerstone of urban living. For instance, in Melbourne, between 5 to 10% of the population lived in these types of arrangements.
Wow, 10%. That's a serious chunk of the population.
It was.
It's like what's old is becoming new again.
Right.
But why? Is it just the economy pushing people back to this model?
Economics definitely play a role, but it's more nuanced than that. Back then, rooming houses were driven by necessity. Cities were booming, and it was a solution for affordable housing in the midst of rapid urbanization. Then as we moved through the 20th century, things shifted. Homeownership became more attainable, aspirations changed, and rooming houses were seen as somewhat outdated.
So they went from a necessity to a choice.
Exactly. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Fast forward to today, and those skyrocketing rents in major cities have brought rooming houses back into focus. Only now they're not just for those seeking affordability. Investors are recognizing them as a potential goldmine in a tight housing market.
So it's kind of a full circle moment driven by different factors, but still the same concept.
Precisely. It really highlights how societal trends and economic forces can reshape the way we think about housing.
Okay, let's unpack this gold mine aspect a bit. I mean, we've all probably split rent with roommates at some point, right? So what exactly is the difference between a rooming house and just grabbing a few friends and sharing a lease?
That's a crucial question because the legal distinctions are really important.
Okay.
In a rooming house, you've got 4 or more unrelated individuals living under one roof, each with their own individual lease agreements. This is different from a traditional shared house where everyone signs onto one big lease together.
So it's not about being one big happy family. It's about each tenant having a direct, legally binding agreement with the landlord.
Exactly. And this structure is what opens up a lot of the financial advantages for landlords. Having those individual leases means you can potentially have higher occupancy rates, which translates directly to higher earning potential.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal from a landlord's perspective. More tenants, more rent coming in, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does this translate into actual numbers? Give me an example.
Let's say you have a 4-bedroom property. In a standard rental situation, you might be able to rent it out for, say, $450 a week. But with the rooming house model and those individual leases, you could potentially rent each room out for $150 a week.
Hold on. So that's jumping from $450 a week to $600. That's a pretty significant difference. I can see why investors are sitting up and taking notice.
It's all about maximizing your rental yield, and that's where things get really interesting from an investment standpoint. But before we dive too deep into that rabbit hole, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the people who are actually living in these rooming houses, the tenants.
Right, because a rooming house is only successful if people actually want to live there.
Exactly.
So let's put ourselves in the tenant's shoes for a moment.
Yeah.
Imagine you're living in a city where finding a decent, affordable apartment feels next to impossible. What are your options, and what makes a rooming house stand out from, say, a tiny studio apartment, or trying to navigate the often chaotic world of shared housing?
That's a great question, and it's crucial to understand the tenant's perspective here.
So are rooming houses the solution for renters stuck between overpriced studios and the potential drama of shared housing?
They can be a very attractive option, and for a lot of different reasons. Think about it. You're a student, maybe an international student new to the country. Australia alone has over 800,000 international students, or a young professional on their own for the first time. A rooming house can provide that much-needed sense of community, a kind of built-in support system, which can be incredibly valuable when you're navigating a new city or life stage.
It's like having a soft landing pad when you're trying to get your bearings.
Exactly. And beyond the social aspect, rooming houses often include amenities and services that you might not find in a typical shared house. Think professional cleaning for common areas, on-site laundry facilities, maybe even a gardener.
Oh, wow.
These are things that can add up quickly if you're living solo, but in a rooming house, they're often included taking some of the stress out of adulting.
It's like the grown-up version of dorm life, but ideally with fewer all-nighters and a bit more privacy. But let's be real, not all rooming houses are created equal. What separates a well-run, desirable rooming house from one that might make you want to sleep with the lights on?
You've hit on a crucial point. The quality and management can vary drastically. A well-managed property will have clearly defined house rules that are actually enforced, ensuring a respectful and harmonious living environment for everyone. And this is important not just for the sake of the tenant's sanity, but also from a landlord's perspective.
Sure.
Because let's face it, dealing with disputes and damage control can quickly eat into your profits.
So it's not just a matter of buying any old property, throwing up a rooms for rent sign and calling it a day.
Yeah.
There's more to it than that.
Way more. This is not a passive investment strategy.
Okay.
And that's where understanding the legal and regulatory maze becomes absolutely crucial, particularly when it comes to zoning laws.
Okay, zoning laws. Now, I'm not going to lie, that doesn't exactly sound like the most exhilarating topic, but I have a feeling it's pretty important in this context.
It's absolutely essential. Not all locations are cut out for successful rooming houses. Local councils have very specific regulations about the number of occupants allowed in a single dwelling, parking requirements, building codes and safety standards, and the list goes on.
Okay.
And these regulations can vary significantly from one neighborhood to the next.
So you could buy a property thinking you've struck gold, only to discover you can only legally rent it out to 2 people instead of 6, for example.
Precisely. And that's why thorough due diligence is non-negotiable. Failing to comply with these regulations can lead to hefty fines, legal battles, and ultimately a financial disaster. It's like playing a game without bothering to learn the rules first.
And that brings us back to that customizable dashboard you mentioned earlier, the one designed to help investors navigate this maze.
Right.
Tell me more about how this tool can help.
It's all about harnessing the power of data.
Okay.
This dashboard lets you analyze potential properties and see how they fit into the local regulations. It can show you areas with high demand for rooming accommodations, overlay zoning restrictions, and even give you an idea of potential profitability.
So it's like having a secret weapon, a way to find those hidden gems where the numbers make sense and the competition hasn't caught on yet.
Exactly. It takes some of the guesswork out of the equation, but beyond the data, it's important to remember that we're talking about people's homes here.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get caught up in the financial side of things. But at the end of the day, a rooming house is a community.
Absolutely. And the demographics of that community are changing. It's not just students anymore.
Oh, right. We touched on that earlier. So who else is turning to rooming houses as the solution?
We're seeing a surge in single parents priced out of the traditional rental market, young professionals looking for affordable options in desirable locations, and even older individuals seeking a sense of community and support. It's a much more diverse landscape than it used to be.
It's fascinating to see how this model is evolving and adapting to the needs of a changing society. It's not just a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a diverse and dynamic part of the housing market.
Yeah, it really speaks to, those creative housing solutions that we need, particularly as affordability, becomes a bigger and bigger concern for so many people.
Absolutely. So after diving deep into this topic, the history, the legalities, the financial aspects, and the social dynamics, I have to ask, do you see rooming houses as a relic of the past, or are they the future of housing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's more nuanced than simply choosing one or the other. Rooming houses offer a unique set of advantages and challenges both for tenants and investors.
For sure, for sure. So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do they need to remember, whether they're looking for a new place to live or considering a foray into real estate investing?
Knowledge is power, and that's true in any aspect of life, but especially when it comes to navigating the complexities of the housing market.
Yeah.
Understanding the nuances of different models like rooming houses empowers you to make informed decisions that align with your individual needs and goals.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those possibilities. We'll keep diving deep together. Until next time, happy learning.
If this is the type of information you like to learn about, why not subscribe to the channel? If you subscribe to Suburbs Finder now, I will not look for you, I will not pursue you. But if you do not, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will give you a big bear hug.